Hi, everybody. My name's Chris Hopper. Joining me is Eric Jesseland and Brian Monroe. We're doing a session on Telemark movement analysis, so buckle up. One important aspect of telemark skiing is the stance, where we have a foot forward and a foot behind, and that gives us a lot of stability. Another aspect of telemark skiing that's important is when we switch our feet forward to back, and that's called the lead change. There are many ways of accomplishing the lead change for different skiing techniques in different conditions. It's a very integral part of the telemark style. The third aspect, and I point this out because it's quite different from alpine skiing, is the amount of pressure that we place on our inside ski is considerably higher than what is generally utilized for alpine skiing. So those three differences, and here for a quick introduction is Michael Stanley, one of our national team telemark skiers.
My tip for you guys is to use your telemark stance for better balance and stability. One of the advantages of the telemark turn is that telemark stance gives us a longer base of support. So I want to use that longer base of support to balance in between my 2 feet. Some things we might see that might get in the way of that are simply standing over my front foot and sliding this foot back, maybe standing over my rear foot and opening this front ankle, or just trying to lift the heel off the ski. An external cue that I like to think about when I'm focusing on my telemark stance is trying to flex the bellow of my boot as opposed to trying to lift my heel off the ski.
Some separation of the upper legs and flexion at the knees and ankles in both legs are great indicators of the body being in a strong telly stance.
As we think about movement analysis, we break it up into 3 separate stages. The first is observation. The second is an evaluation. And then the third piece is the prescription. And the acronym is OEP. The observation is analogous to the scene size up in OEC, where we're taking it all in, as well as looking at specific details that we're seeing being demonstrated by the skier. The evaluation occurs after we've done all of our observations. We've got all our information regarding the ski technique, the turns that they're trying to execute, or the skills that they're trying to execute, and their performance regarding that. And then the prescription involves how are we going to give them feedback. It's generally an iterative process. There's no silver bullet related to this, but it really depends on how the skier reacts to our input, and how we can bring them to the next levels in terms of their skiing. So let's look at some basic MA concepts regarding the observation. We're asking what is happening. So we look at what's happening between the skis and the snow, between the lower body and the skis, particularly at the boots. Why is this happening? So we look at, again, body performance, lower body, upper body, how they're working together, the cause and effect relationship when we're doing this evaluation. What's the input, and the cause? What's the output, meaning the effect that we're seeing? And then we ask ourselves, how would we improve this? What can we do more of? What can we do less of? What can we build on? It's always good to have something positive to start with. And then what benefits can we provide for them? And that might be direct input. It might be static drills. It might be demonstrations. It might be a series of things, generally is a series of things that help improve the situation. Finally, as we're looking at senior TE activities and evaluations, we're looking at how would we score this as it compares to the senior level performance. And then we're also keeping in mind utilizing all the details to help support why are we at senior standard, why are we above senior standard perhaps, or why not. So during observation, we're looking at what is happening between the skis and the snow. So both skis are very important in Telemark, and we're looking at, are they doing the same things? Are we sliding, slipping, carving? Again, compared to the task, how consistent is it from turn to turn, from side to side? Second thing is how do both skis compare to one another during each individual turn, but also from turn to turn? Do we maintain a parallel relationship? Are turns rounded or are they Z turns? Is our lead change continuous, in control? Does it complement the turn? We talk about dirt, which is, how we're putting pressure on the skis, the duration, intensity, rate, and timing of pressure application, could be rotary application, could be how quickly we're edging during the turn or changing our edging during the turn. It can describe the lead change. All of those have dirt components. And finally, what is the body doing? How is it positioned? Is it quiet? Do we see signs of instability? Are the movements quick or are they controlled? Is there inclination and angulation? And very important in telemark skiing is flexion and extension. So generally the lower body is more flexed than an alpine stance. And we take advantage of that to maintain our good solid telemark stance, as well as our nice controlled lead change. Finally, where is the skier looking? Are they anticipating, the next turn? Are they kind of rigid and just following their skis? All of those are clues and observable details. And then obviously we're trying to start with what are they doing well, again, building on success. It can be something specific that they're doing in all their turns. It can be something that they're doing really well on one side, and we want to leverage that and improve performance on the other side. So here's our first skier. We're going to watch this video several times. Go ahead and watch the first time, and then on the second and third time through, start making some notes. Again, starting with the performance of the ski at the snow. Look at the feet, then work your way up the body. Only observations at this point. Here it is again. More observation. We're going to slow it down. This should help quite a bit. You can start to see some of those details that we were talking about. We have a second video, the second skier that we want to compare to the previous skier. This happens to have more difficult conditions, and we're also seeing a higher skill level. And so their turns appear to be a little asymmetric. You have to look very carefully to see that because the quality is so good. If you're noticing a slight difference from one side to the next, that's why. Okay, we're going to go back to our first skier now. And with our memory of the ideal case, we want to do some comparison as we look at this again. First time through, again, your observations are going to be very important, and begin to do some evaluation of what you're seeing. Let's start with what's going on between the skis and the snow. As we see the skier turning right, we see snow coming off the front in the middle of the ski. As we turn left, it's more toward the back of the ski. And if we look further, we see good inside ski pressure on the right-hand turns, less so on the left-hand turns. We'll look at our skis during the transition, during turn initiation. Are things parallel or not? More so on the right-hand turns, less so on the left-hand turns. And you can see here, as we slow it down, it's very open at the front ankle, especially in the left-hand turn. This ankle is very open. The weight is back. Their posture is back a little bit. And when we talk about, we'll get into the scoring criteria, but we talk about separating the upper body from the lower body and making angles or angulation between the upper and lower body. That's more pronounced in the right-hand turns than the left-hand turns. You can see here the left-hand turns, the upper body is swaying back a little bit. And that's leading to a lead change here. On the left-hand turns, it's very quick, very abrupt, and it occurs very early in the turn. You can see the lead change on the right-hand turns is more gradual, more consistent, more like what we would be asking for at the senior level. But on the left-hand side, it's much shorter and it's much earlier in the turn. So then we get a quick short turn and then more of a static hold in terms of their position rather than that continuous lead change. Eric, do you
Yeah,
want to add?
I think it's easy for us to identify that a lot of skiers have a stronger side and a weaker side, and this illustrates it pretty well. When you're first looking at the video, it looks pretty good, but when you start breaking it down using the movement analysis, you start to pick up on these things, not getting as much pressure on that trailing left foot on the left turns, and you can see the inclination. So there's a couple things going on that just those left turns kind of have a lazy quality to them compared to the right turns.
And this skier is fooling us because they have a very quiet upper body. They're not flailing their arms around. They're doing a good job of staying in control. So this is definitely one that we need to pay attention to. So as we evaluate our observations, again, we're looking at cause and effect. So what do we see and then why is that occurring? So connected and rounded turn shapes, again, this is from the scorecard. So first criteria is connected and rounded turn shapes of various sizes, maintaining consistent speed and control. This particular skier didn't demonstrate varying sizes, but we're not going to score them down for that. Really looking for rounded turns versus kind of Z-shaped turns. And again, for this skier, for that run, the biggest difference was rounded turns in the right hand and relatively shorter, more Z-shaped on the left-hand side. So during our evaluation, again, we're looking at cause and effect. So, what are we observing? That's the effect. And then the cause is going to be the body movement or body position that's bringing that about. Focus on the visual cues as written on the senior scorecard. So we're going to go back to the video and we want you to look at the connected and rounded turn shape of varying sizes, maintaining speed and control, looking at simultaneous foot tipping at initiation, both feet remaining in contact with the snow. Are the skis parallel at initiation? Consistently turning the skis separate from a stable upper body, controlling our edge angles with a combination of inclination and angulation, and finally, continuous movement to both feet to produce a lead change at or near the apex of the turn. Those are our visual cues in telemark skiing. So keeping in mind those visual cues, as we review the video, let's do our assessments one at a time. So we're looking for connected and rounded turn shapes of various sizes, maintaining speed and control. We're looking at simultaneous foot tipping at initiation. Are the skis parallel at initiation? Are we consistently turning the skis from a stable upper body? Are we controlling our edge angles with a combination of inclination and angulation? And then do we have continuous movement to both feet to produce a lead change at or near the apex of the turn? These slow motion videos sure help, don't they? Now comes the tough part, putting down our scores. Let's look at the scoring criteria in the bottom box from 1 to 6, with 4 being at the senior level. I like to start all the scoring kind of assuming this skier is going to be at the level for all the criteria. Those that appear above level frequently, I'll score more, higher than 4. Those where the elements aren't showing up consistently, and in some cases not at all, then we have to score those below 4. We're not looking at, are they doing it for every single turn, every single movement? We're looking for patterns. We're looking for behaviors that are exhibited throughout the run. So let's watch the video one more time and allow everybody a chance to record their scores. Okay, so for the first visual cue, connected and rounded turn shapes of various sizes, I scored this run a 3, primarily because of the difference between the right-hand turns and the left-hand turns, with the left-hand turns being more Z-shaped and less rounded than we want to see. I believe the turns on the right-hand side are at senior level, but not the ones on the left. Eric?
I also scored that a 3. Same reason.
So the second visual cue, second criteria is simultaneous foot tipping at initiation for carving or skidding. Either is acceptable. Both feet remain in contact with the snow. I scored that a 4. I think this skier on this run does a good job of this criteria. Eric?
Yeah, I also scored that a 4. When I'm looking at the skis at the snow level, you can see that they're tipping at the same time and at the same angle.
That's that dirt we were talking about. Okay, the next visual cue, the third criteria, or skis are parallel at initiation. And for this run, for this skier, I see quite a bit of divergence, especially on the left-hand turn. That's what causes that generally is some inconsistent pressure on that inside ski. But I would score that a 3 for this run. Eric?
I agree, and I scored it a 3 for the same reasons.
And it really helps to have these in slow motion to see these details. The fourth criteria consistently turns the skis separate from a stable upper body. Again, I scored this a 3, primarily for the differences and between right and left and the deficiencies that I see on the left-hand side. The posture during the left turns is back, is less stable, while the turns or the body and the posture to the right is more stable for these runs. Eric?
I agree again. Also had it as a 3. Seeing the same thing.
Okay, the 5th criteria is control edge angles through a combination of inclination and angulation. This is going to sound a little redundant, but again, we've got performance at senior level in those right-hand turns, but not in the left hand. And we're not seeing much, if any, angulation on while we're turning to the left. The body is more upright, the hips are back, the hips are open, and we'd like to see them down the fall line, projecting a little more into the turn. So I have a 3 for this visual cue, controlling edge angles through inclination and angulation. How about you, Eric?
I also had a 3 on the right hand turns. I do see a little bit of angulation to go with some inclination. The left hand turns, it is pretty much all inclination. And again, the upper body is aft a little bit, which isn't helping him either.
Thank you. And then the last one, continuous movement to both feet to produce a lead change at or near the apex. Seeing this skill demonstrated more consistently at the senior level for the right-hand turns, less so for the left-hand turns. You can see the lead change being quite quick on the left-hand side, a little more static in terms of the feet positioning and movement. And so I have that as a 3 for this run.
I also had that as a 3. Looks a little uncomfortable with that left foot back, like he's not able to put as much pressure as I'd like to see on that. And that's kind of forcing him to make a quick lead change and then ride the new lead ski the rest of the turn.
Yeah, I think more pressure on that inside ski on those left-hand turns will go a long way to improve a number of these criteria. So in summary, after our scores, we want to give clear, concise, and actionable feedback. When we look at these scores and we consider what are we going to share with the skier, we already talked about more even pressure, meaning more pressure on that inside ski. I think that will go a long way to improve their stance, improve their lead change, and then allow them to focus on some of these more subtle visual cues like angulation.
So yeah, I agree with everything you said. The positive that we can really build off of here is there's that 4 that kind of sticks out with that simultaneous foot tipping. And I think we can build off of that. There's some drills, of course, we can do to help him get more comfortable with that trailing back left foot.
Always a good place to start with what they're doing well. And we also would include how they're doing things well on that right-hand side. And we just need to transfer that to that left-hand side. or left-hand turns. All right, we have another candidate. So again, let's start with observation. Let's review our scores. So for our first visual cue, connected and rounded turns, turn shapes of various sizes, maintaining consistent speed and control. I gave this skier a 5 for this run. I think the turns are all very rounded. Speed control is excellent. They're taking or making use of terrain changes. You can see how things kind of funnel down at the end. They go from wide to, relatively small turns. I think it's a good demonstration of that. Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I also scored that a 5. Nice round turns. I like the skier's ability to adapt the blend of skills when he's moving from a medium to a short back to a long and still maintain that rounded turn shape.
Excellent. Thank you. The second visual cue, simultaneous foot tipping at initiation, carving and skidding are acceptable. Both feet remain in contact with the snow. Again, I would score this a 5. Very consistent performance given the variable snow conditions. How about you, Eric?
I'm right there with you. I also have that as a 5.
Third one, skis parallel at initiation. Actually, on the shorter turns, you see a little bit of convergence, not a lot, just a small amount. On the more medium and larger turns, they're completely parallel. So I would score that a 4 at senior level for this run. Eric?
I would agree, and I do see a little bit of that. Not quite parallel at the initiation of the turn on the small radius, but we're going to have another shot at that when they do short radius turns on a steeper pitch. So that's another section on the scorecard. We'll look for that at that point.
Excellent. The fourth criteria, fourth visual cue, consistently turn skis separate from a stable upper body. Again, I would have this at a 5, primarily because of the variable snow conditions, but I think they exhibit a lot of stability and good turning with the feet and legs. Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I also scored that a 4, basically for the same reasons.
Okay, thank you. Control edges through a combination of inclination and angulation. This skier has very subtle angulation, but it's there and it's consistent in both the shorter turns and the medium longer turns. I would score that a 4 for this run. Eric?
I also scored that a 4. If you look at that first right-hand turn, he's pretty inclined, and you're thinking, uh-oh. But then after that, he shows nice angulation and all the turns, and even what I like to call a little progressive angulation, where he comes into the turn a little more inclined and then gradually increases the angulation as he gets into the shaping phase and through the finishing phase of the turn.
Yeah. Builds into it with that intensity. Continuous movement of both feet to produce a lead change at or near the apex of the turn. This might seem like I'm being a little critical, but I see the lead change being a little bit early, especially on these shorter turns. And I would, if I was doing a little coaching for this skier, I would tell them to be a little more deliberate and delay the initiation of that lead change on those shorter turns. And so I would score that a 3 for this run.
I'm finally going to disagree with you, Chris. I'm going to call that a 4. I agree there is sometimes where he's a little quick on it, but the amount of lead change is appropriate, and it's actually complementing the turn. Sometimes when we get into the longer radius turns in particular, it's really hard to elongate that lead change. So you have a tendency to finish it early and end up riding that position a little bit into the transition into the next turn.
Excellent. So even though we've got some small discrepancies between the scores, we're both solidly at or a little bit above on senior level for this skier on this run. Quick review, the OEP process. It's all about observing what is happening, keeping in mind the visual cues, trying to understand what are the dominant and consistent behaviors and what effects that is producing, and leading us right into the evaluation. Why are we seeing what we're seeing? What are the causes? Is it, pressure, edging, rotation? Are they out of balance? Are they being applied too quickly? Are they being applied, not quickly enough or not enough in terms of magnitude? All of that contributes to the performance that we're seeing on the skis. And again, we let the visual cues guide us into how we're evaluating the different aspects of the skier performance. And finally, creating a prescription, building on the positives, but identifying what can be improved, what should be improved, and what skills do they already possess that they can leverage to move forward in their skiing. And then finally, how do you score this relative to the senior level performance and at level 4, and then being specific as to why it aligns with that or why not if it doesn't.